You think you can just walk in here and play the hero? Carter Blake clenched his fists. His voice shook with fury. You have no idea who you are messing with, old man. Michael Harrison slowly lifted his eyes from the papers scattered on the floor. His calm gaze met the blazing, furious eyes of the 18-year-old teenager. Carter, he said quietly, and there was something in his tone that sent a chill down the young man's spine. You are right. You really don't know who you have tangled with. Behind Carter, his friends Jake Martinez and Dylan Cooper gathered. The three were the stars of the high school football team, the kings of Riverside High School. No one ever dared to stand against them. What do you mean by that? Jake hissed, pulling out his phone to start recording everything. Michael slowly rose from his knees where he had been picking up his belongings after yet another prank from the teenagers. His movements were smooth, precise, far too precise for a typical school teacher. I want to say, he stepped forward, and something in his eyes made even Carter step back, that some people come into your life to teach a lesson, and others to become the lesson for others. Are you threatening us? Dylan's voice betrayed a flicker of fear. Michael smiled sadly. No, Dylan. I am warning you for the last time. What happens next will be the most interesting part. Stay with us to find out how it all ended. Meanwhile, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what happens next. Monday morning, 7 o'clock, Milford, Connecticut. Riverside High School greeted a new day with its usual chaos. The loud chatter of teenagers, the slamming of lockers, and the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallways. Michael Harrison stood by the main entrance, gripping a worn leather briefcase in his hand. At 43 years old, he appeared tired, marked by life's hardships. His temples showed streaks of gray hair, deep wrinkles framed his eyes, and his shoulders were slightly hunched. Nothing about him suggested he was once a military man. None of the passing students paid him any attention. Just another middle-aged teacher. Just another forgotten face in their world of social media and teenage drama. The school principal, Robert Anderson, greeted Michael in the main office with a strained smile that belonged to someone juggling too many issues at once. Mr. Harrison, welcome to Riverside. I hope your move went smoothly. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Everything is fine, Michael replied as he shook the extended hand, noticing the principal's eye twitch momentarily. Good, good. I should warn you about some particular traits of our students, Anderson said, clearing his throat nervously. Especially some of the seniors, Carter Blake, Jake Martinez, Dylan Cooper. They are, how shall I put it, troublesome, Michael stated calmly. Influential, the principal corrected. Their parents sit on the school's board of trustees, very generous donors. You understand what I mean? Michael nodded. He understood far more than Robert Anderson realized. The previous English teacher, Mr. Collins, unfortunately could not connect with these boys. I hope you have better luck. What happened to Mr. Collins? Anderson avoided giving a direct answer. Nervous exhaustion, early retirement due to health reasons. Michael mentally noted this information. In his 2 decades as an educator, he had encountered numerous similar situations. Room number 237 was located in the far wing of the school. Michael pushed open the door and stepped inside a spacious classroom with large windows and rows of desks. The blackboard was covered in crude drawings and writings in chalk, obviously yesterday's gifts from the students. Michael calmly wiped the board and began to arrange his few belongings, several books, a stack of notebooks, and a framed photograph of his family. In the picture, he was hugging a young woman and a small girl. He placed the photo face down against the wall. Those memories were too painful. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the bell rang and students started filing into the classroom. Most looked like ordinary teenagers, some interested, some bored, and some openly sleepy after waking up early. But as soon as Carter Blake appeared in the doorway with his friends, the classroom atmosphere shifted instantly. Carter was a tall young man with an athletic build, perfectly styled dark hair, and a confident smile. He wore the signature jacket of the school football team, covered in pins and patches. Jake Martinez and Dylan Cooper flanked him on either side like bodyguards, celebrities. The other students instinctively stepped aside, clearing a path for them to reach the back rows. So, Michael began once everyone settled down. "My name is Mr. Harrison. I will be your new English and literature teacher." Carter Blake yawned deliberately and rested his feet on the desk in front of a fellow student. "This semester, we will explore works that raise questions about justice, moral decisions, and the consequences of our actions." "Boring," Jake Martinez shouted loudly, causing a few classmates to chuckle. Michael continued as if he had not heard. "Let's start with a simple question. What is true strength? Who wants to answer?" Emma Richardson, sitting in the first row, raised her hand. "I think true strength is the ability to help those who are weaker than you." "Excellent answer, Miss Richardson." Michael nodded approvingly. "Nonsense," Carter scoffed. "Strength is when everyone fears you, when you can do whatever you want, and no one dares to oppose you." "An interesting viewpoint, Mr. Blake." Michael turned to him. "What do you think of hidden strength? People who seem weak, but actually possess amazing power." "Those don't exist," Carter declared confidently. "If you are strong, you show it. Everything else is just weak people pretending to be tough." Michael nodded slowly. "We will return to this topic soon." As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, Carter stood and headed for the door. Passing by the teacher's desk, the teacher accidentally brushed against Michael Harrison's backpack, causing him to stumble and drop its contents onto the floor. "Oops, sorry about that," said Carter Blake with feigned regret. Michael's friends gasped in surprise, while the rest of the students quickly left the classroom, unwilling to get involved in any trouble. Calmly, Michael knelt down and began gathering the scattered papers. Among them were documents not typically seen by an ordinary schoolteacher. Classified letters marked secret, photographs of military operations, and correspondence from high-ranking officials were all mixed in. Fortunately, the teenagers were too caught up in their own sense of superiority to notice these details. Only Emma Richardson stayed behind in the room. "Mr. Harrison, I am really sorry," she said quietly. "They treat all new teachers like this. Do not worry, Miss Richardson. I have faced far worse problems before. They will not stop," he warned. Mr. Collins once believed he could reform them, but ended up having to take them to the emergency room during a lesson. He had a nervous breakdown when Carter Blake brought a rat into the class and threw it at him from behind. Michael lifted his head from the papers he was picking up. The rat. They claimed it was part of an experiment studying human responses to stress. The principal chose not to punish them, especially since Carter's parents donated a new wing to the school library. Understandable. Michael finished cleaning up and stood up. "Thanks for the warning, Emma. Just be careful, okay? They could go to extreme lengths." After she left, Michael remained deep in thought. He was alone in an empty classroom. He walked over to the window and gazed down at the schoolyard. There, Carter Blake and his friends were engaged in a lively argument, occasionally pointing toward the second-floor windows. Michael Harrison took out his mobile phone and scrolled through his contacts. Among them were numbers of social workers, child psychologists, specialists dealing with troubled teens, people he had collaborated with over many years of his teaching career. In his 2 decades of work at various schools, he had met hundreds of children like Carter, Jake Martinez, and Dylan Cooper. Most of them simply required the right approach and understanding, but some had crossed dangerous boundaries, such as his own daughter. Michael's fingers absent-mindedly touched a photo on the desk. Emily was only 14 when a group of upperclassmen pushed her to a point he still could not think about without pain. After that tragedy, he devoted his life to preventing anything similar from happening again. He studied adolescent psychology, methods for working with aggressive children, and became an expert in school bullying. Now, he saw all the signs of an impending disaster. The second half of the day brought fresh challenges. During lunch break, Michael went to the teacher's lounge to eat. However, when he opened his food container, a nauseating smell soared out. Someone had placed a dead mouse in his salad. "Having problems, Mr. Harrison?" came a familiar voice from behind. Michael turned around. Standing in the doorway was Mr. Collins. Carter wore an innocent expression on his face. "No problems, Mr. Blake. Just checking the quality of the school meals." "Yes, sometimes there are surprises," Carter smirked. "By the way, I heard that you are a soldier or a former soldier. Where did you hear that? Is it true?" Carter's eyes lit up with a hunter's enthusiasm. "I wonder, which wars did you take part in? In Iraq? Afghanistan?" Michael closed the container with the spoiled food. "I teach English, Mr. Blake. My past has nothing to do with literature lessons, but it is related to why you are here." "That's right." Carter stepped forward one pace. "You know what I think? I believe you are one of those losers who couldn't find their place in the real world and came to teach children. A typical story for weaklings." "Maybe you are right," Michael calmly agreed. Carter expected aggression, anger, an attempt to assert authority, but such a response confused him. Although, Michael continued, heading to the exit. "The most dangerous people often look like losers. Remember that." After he left, Carter stayed standing in the teacher's lounge, pondering those words. The next English lesson turned into a real challenge. Carter, Jake, and Dylan made every effort to disrupt the class. They tossed paper balls, imitated animal sounds, fell off chairs pretending to faint. Michael kept teaching as if nothing was happening. He spoke about the novel Lord of the Flies by William Golding, the story about how civilized children turn into savages when rules vanish and adult authority disappears. "It is interesting to note," he said, scanning the classroom, "that the main antagonist in the novel, Jake, was neither the strongest nor the smartest boy. Yet he understood crowd psychology. He knew how to exploit the fears and desires of other kids." Carter stopped his antics and listened carefully. Jake established a cult of power and brutality, but ultimately his empire collapsed because it was built on fear, not on respect. Fear is an extremely unreliable foundation for leadership. "What happened to Jake in the end?" Dylan asked unexpectedly. "He was rescued," Michael replied. But the rescue came from the outside. Adults intervened and ended the chaos. Jake could not manage the consequences of his actions on his own. Carter frowned. He sensed the teacher was talking about more than just literature. After class, when most students had left, only one boy remained in the room. Aaron Wells, a skinny 17-year-old wearing glasses, nervously twisted the strap of his backpack. "Mr. Harrison," he whispered, "can I talk to you?" "Of course, Aaron. What's the matter?" The boy glanced toward the door, making sure they were alone. "They make me do their homework. Carter and his friends. It has been going on for 6 months." Michael put down his pen and looked carefully at the teenager. "Tell me more." "At first, they just copied from me, but then they demanded that I do all their assignments. They said if I refused." He fell silent. "What did they say?" "That they would post on the internet pictures taken in the locker room after gym class. Compromising pictures." The boy's voice trembled with shame. "They also took my phone and found private messages with a guy. We are just friends, but they are blackmailing you. And not only me. I know several others they do this to, but no one dares to complain." Michael nodded silently, processing the information. "Mr. Harrison, I am not asking you to intervene. Just if they ask you to change their grades or something like that, please do not agree. I do not want another teacher to suffer because of me." Aaron leaned forward. "Do you know what blackmail is?" It is when someone forces you to do something by threatening to reveal something, right? And do you know that blackmail is a serious crime? That people who practice it usually do not stop at one victim. Aaron nodded. I understand. But what can I do? My dad works for Carter's dad. If this comes out, your father works for Richard Blake? Yes. He is the chief accountant at his construction company. If Mr. Blake wants, he can fire my dad at any moment. Michael stood up and went to the window. Outside, darkness was already falling. The short winter day was coming to an end. Aaron, you know what I will tell you? Sometimes the only way to stop a predator is to show him that you can be dangerous too. But I am not dangerous. I would not even hurt a fly. Michael, he turned toward him with a mysterious smile. I do not need you to be the dangerous one. It is enough that I will be the threat. Aaron blinked, confused. What exactly do you mean? Nothing at the moment. Just trust me. All right. And remember, blackmailers fear only one thing. What is that? That their own secrets will become public knowledge. Later that evening, Michael was seated in his rented apartment near the school, absorbed in examining files on his laptop. The screen displayed detailed dossiers on all three teenagers, a product of experts skilled at uncovering information about anyone. Carter Blake was 18, the son of the owner of the largest construction company in the state. Captain of the football team, his excellent grades were thanks to bribed teachers and assignments completed by others. In his spare time, he sold drugs to classmates. 2 incidents involving drunk driving had been kept hidden from the public. Jake Martinez was 17, the adopted son of Judge Martinez. He struggled with aggression and was under psychiatric care. Several accusations of animal cruelty had been dropped due to the influence of his adoptive father. Dylan Cooper was 18, with a mother who served as a state congresswoman and a father who was a well-known lawyer. He battled serious gambling problems and owed a large sum to the local mafia. His parents were unaware of his debts. Each had weaknesses, secrets that could destroy their lives. Michael's phone rang. Harrison speaking. How are things at school? A familiar voice asked without any introduction. The situation is worse than we expected. This is not simply bullying at school. It involves organized crime with minors playing central roles. Blackmail, drug trafficking, possibly even forced prostitution. I am still verifying the details. How many victims are there? At least 7 have already been identified, but most likely there are more. There was a pause. Follow protocol number 3. Are you certain? Protocol 3 means full exposure. These kids might become future serial killers or terrorists. It is better to stop them now. Understood? Michael ended the call and looked back at his laptop screen. Protocol number 3 meant he was no longer limited in his methods. All measures were considered acceptable. He opened a new file and began drafting a plan. The next morning, Carter woke up to a phone call. It was the school administration. Mr. Blake, this is Mrs. Hendricks from the office. You need to come to school along with your parents for an urgent meeting with the principal. What is it about? Carter asked. Complaints about your behavior have been filed. Several students and their parents contacted the administration. Carter felt his stomach tighten with fear. What kind of complaints? You will find out at the meeting. We expect you in an hour. The line went dead. With trembling hands, Carter started scrolling through his contacts, searching for Jake's number. Jake, we need to meet immediately. But when he arrived at his friend's house, he learned that Jake had received a similar call. Someone had reported too. The juvenile services received a report about his aggressive conduct at school. Dylan was also in a state of panic. His mother got an anonymous call from a concerned parent who revealed how her son was extorting money from younger students. Carter, with trembling hands, started scrolling through his phone contacts, searching for Jake's number. Jake, we need to meet right now. However, when he reached his friend's house, It turned out Jake had gotten a similar call. Someone knew about his psychiatric visits, the hidden episodes of cruelty, and the forged health certificates. Dylan was terrified as well. The caller was aware of his debts, where he got the money, and even that he stole from his mother's wallet. "This cannot be a coincidence," Carter said when they gathered at an abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. "Someone is systematically targeting all of us. But who?" Jake nervously paced back and forth. Who could know so much? "The only new person in our lives is the new teacher," Dylan slowly said. "Harrison? Come on, he's a total loser. But remember what he said about the most dangerous people?" Carter frowned. That they often look like failures? Silence fell. "We have to check," Carter finally said. "We need to find out who this Michael Harrison really is." Chapter 4. Revealing the cards. The school had a strange vibe. Carter, Jake, and Dylan were acting unusually quiet. They stopped bullying weaker students and no longer caused trouble. Disorderly behavior during lessons was common, and some students even exchanged greetings with the teachers. After the second English class, Aaron Wells approached Michael. Something extraordinary happened with Mr. Harrison. Carter Blake returned all the money he had forced me to steal from home and deleted every compromising photo from my phone. "That is wonderful, Aaron, but I don't understand why." "What happened?" Michael shrugged. "Maybe he simply matured, or perhaps someone made him do it." Aaron looked closely at the teacher. "Mr. Harrison, are you truly just an English teacher? And what else could I be? I do not know. However, ordinary teachers do not have the ability to change people so quickly." Michael smiled. Sometimes people change on their own when they realize the consequences of their actions. After class, Michael stayed behind, grading notebooks. He knew what awaited him. Sure enough, after half an hour, the door opened, and the three entered the classroom. This time, their attitude lacked the previous aggression. They appeared frightened and confused. Mr. Harrison began speaking. "Carter, we need to talk." "Certainly. Take a seat." The teenagers sat in the front row, which was unusual. They usually took seats at the back of the class. "Was it you?" Carter asked directly. "Calls this morning." "What calls?" "Do not pretend. We know it was you." Michael put down his pen and looked at them intently. "Suppose it was me. What then?" "Who are you?" Jake blurted out. "You are not an ordinary teacher. And what makes you think that?" "Ordinary teachers do not know such details about students' lives," Dylan said, "and they are not skilled at obtaining information that cannot be easily accessed." Michael rose from his chair and moved toward the window. "You know, boys, there is a profession that involves protecting people from predators. Sometimes these predators wear military uniforms and fire automatic weapons, while other times they dress in school uniforms and apply psychological pressure." "Are you a spy?" Carter asked with suspicion. "I am someone who stops those who cause harm to the innocent." Michael faced them, and the teenagers saw something in his eyes that made them shrink back in their seats. In the past 2 years, 3 students in this school have tried to take their own lives. 5 have transferred to other institutions, and 2 ended up in a psychiatric hospital. All of this is the consequence of the actions of one group of students. "We never forced anyone to kill themselves," Jake protested. "No." "Then tell me about Timmy Johnson." The teenagers exchanged glances. Timmy Johnson was a student in their class last year, a quiet, withdrawn boy they regularly humiliated. "Timmy just moved away," Dylan replied uncertainly. "Timmy tried to hang himself in his home's basement," Michael said coldly. "After you posted a video online showing him crying in the school bathroom, his younger sister saved him." Silence followed. "And Sarah Mitchell, remember her?" "What happened to her?" Carter asked hoarsely. "She's still taking antidepressants after you spread rumors about her." Rumors about her private life escalated to the point where her parents sent her to a boarding school for troubled teens. Michael stepped forward, and all three instinctively recoiled. Do you want to know who I am? I am a teacher with 20 years of experience working in challenging schools. I am someone who lost his own daughter because of bullying, similar to what you are inflicting. The teenagers fell silent. My Emily was 14 when a group of upperclassmen pushed her to attempt to take her own life. She survived, but the emotional wounds remain forever. Michael paused, gathering his strength. After that ordeal, I immersed myself in everything related to teen aggression, school bullying, and the psychology of both victims and perpetrators. I became an expert in this field. He looked each of them in the eye. When I see kids like you, I know exactly where this leads if left unchecked. What do you want from us? Carter asked quietly. I want you to grasp a simple truth. Your actions destroy lives. And if you do not stop, you will end up destroying your own as well. Michael stood up and walked to the blackboard, writing one word. Choice. Each of you has a decision to make. You can keep acting like predators and risk ending up in jail or a psychiatric hospital. Or you can choose to change your life starting right now. What if we do not want to change? Carter asked boldly. Michael turned to him with a look that made the teenager regret his words. Then I will make it so that you have no other option. That evening, Carter sat in his room, trying to make sense of what had happened. His phone lay on the desk, and he was afraid to even touch it. What if that person with the distorted voice called again? Richard entered the room without knocking, a habit that used to annoy Carter, but now frightened him. Son, I need to talk to you. Richard Blake was a man of considerable stature, used to being obeyed without question. He had built a construction empire almost from nothing, and his business methods were not always legal. I received a strange phone call today, he began, sitting on the edge of the bed. Someone gave me very interesting information about your school affairs. Carter froze. What information? That my son is involved in blackmail and dealing drugs right at school. His father's voice was deceptively calm. Can you imagine what kind of blow this could deal to our family's reputation? Dad, I can explain everything. Explain? Richard stood up. Do you think I am a fool? Do you think I don't know what you spend the money I give you for pocket expenses on? Carter realized he was trapped. Whoever called this morning clearly was not satisfied with just him. But the strangest part, do you know what? This person did not demand money or try to blackmail me. He simply gave a piece of advice. What kind of advice? To focus on raising his son before it became too late. Richard stepped closer. And you know what? He was right. The blow landed square on Carter's face before he even realized what was happening. He collapsed to the floor, clutching his burning cheek. You have disgraced the family, his father growled. You thought Daddy would always protect you, that my money could fix every problem. Richard grabbed his son by the shirt and pulled him to his feet. Starting tomorrow, you will work at the construction site. After school, on weekends, and during holidays, you will carry bags of cement until you understand the value of money and hard work. But no arguing. Also, tomorrow, you will go to everyone you have hurt and apologize publicly in front of witnesses. Carter stared at his father with wide eyes. He was used to Richard covering for his mistakes, always siding with him against the whole world. You don't get it, do you? Richard smirked. You think this is unfair? Do you know what the person who called me promised to do if you didn't change? Carter stayed silent. He said if you are not a different person within 1 week, all your secrets will become public. And then neither my money, connections, nor influence will help you. You'll end up in juvenile detention and later in adult prison. Richard headed towards the door, but paused before leaving. And you know what is the scariest part? I am starting to think this might actually be for the best. The door slammed shut, leaving silence behind. Carter sat alone, his mind racing and his cheek burning. Meanwhile, Jake was sitting in the office of the family psychiatrist, Dr. Stephen Wright. His foster parents had brought him here following a similar phone call. "Jake," the doctor spoke softly, "your parents are very worried. They have been informed about certain incidents at school." "Who told them?" Jake asked. "That is not important. What matters is that you have been hiding serious issues with anger." Jake shifted nervously in his chair. He hated these sessions, hated how the doctor looked at him as if examining him under a microscope. "I was told about the cat," the doctor continued. Jake went pale. "What cat?" "The one you tormented in the garage last summer. The neighbors saw it." "I'm not Jake," the doctor responded. "Lies will only make things worse. I have photographs." Opening a folder, he showed pictures that made the teenager turn away. "Do you know what this is called in psychiatry? Sadism. If left untreated, it worsens. First animals, then people. I do not want to hurt anyone, but you want to cause pain. Admit that to yourself at least." Jake remained silent, clenching his fists. "Your foster parents want to place you in a special facility for teens with behavioral problems," the doctor informed him. "And I believe that is the right decision." "No," Jake shouted, "not that. Real lunatics are there." "And what makes you better than them?" the doctor calmly asked. At the same time, Dylan was sitting at the kitchen table at home, facing his parents. His mother, Congresswoman Elizabeth Cooper, looked tense. It seemed as if he had aged 10 years within a single day. $80,000, she repeated firmly. "You owe that much to people who would kill over far less." Robert Anderson, a father and lawyer, silently reviewed the documents they had received. "It says here that you took money from my purse," his mother continued, "and from your father's, from your grandmother's pension, even from the homeless aid fund that I manage." "Mom, I can pay it all back." "With what?" her husband exploded. "You have no job, no skills. You can't even get through school without extra help." Dylan lowered his head, knowing his parents were right. "Do you know what hurts me the most?" his mother said softly. "It's not that you stole. It's not the gambling. It's that you made other kids suffer just to cover your debts." She pulled out pictures from her purse. "These are children you and your friends have driven to nervous breakdowns. Look at them." Reluctantly, Dylan raised his eyes. In the photos were children with vacant, lifeless eyes, kids who looked far older than their age. "This girl is 14, his mother pointed to one picture, "and she's already tried to take her own life twice." "I didn't know." "You didn't want to know," his father shouted. "You didn't care about anyone but yourself." Robert stood and began pacing the kitchen. "Tomorrow morning, you are going to the police to confess everything. The blackmail, the extortion, everything. But then I will be arrested, and rightly so." Elizabeth stood up as well. "Maybe prison is the only place where at last, you will understand that your actions bring consequences. Mother, please." "No." The voice of the mother was as cold as ice. "I have fought for justice my entire life. I will not allow my own son to turn this fight into a mockery." She moved toward the kitchen door, but paused there. "And tomorrow you are going to see a psychiatrist, because ordinary people do not take pleasure in the suffering of others." The next morning, all 3 teenagers came to school different than before. Carter had a bruise beneath his eye. Jake's eyes were red from crying, and Dylan's hands trembled. They gathered in an empty classroom before classes started. "We are caught," Carter whispered quietly. "Our parents know everything." "Mine want to send me to a mental hospital," added Jake. "And mine want to put me in prison," murmured Dylan. Silence filled the room. "What should we do?" Jake asked. "I do not know," Carter answered honestly. "For the first time in my life, I do not know." The door opened, and Michael Harrison entered the classroom. He looked as calm as ever, but his eyes shone with something new. Satisfaction. "Good morning, boys. How was your evening?" Carter lifted his head, and for the first time, Michael saw true fear in his eyes. "You have destroyed our lives," the teenager croaked. "No," Michael replied calmly, closing the door behind him. "You destroyed them yourselves. I just revealed the truth to everyone." Jake jumped up. "My parents want to take away their custody rights because of you. Because you tortured animals and bullied weaker kids," Michael corrected. "Your parents just found out who they really raised." Dylan sobbed quietly, burying his face in his hands. "His mother said that I'm dead to her, that I no longer have a son." Michael stepped closer. "And you know what? She's right. The person you once were needs to vanish for someone new to emerge." "You are insane," Carter shouted, jumping up. "You are a sick man who finds pleasure in others' suffering." Michael stopped a few feet from him. "Want to know who enjoys the pain of others? Look in the mirror. I am not that person." "No." Michael took out his phone and played a video. "Then explain this to me." The screen showed footage captured by a hidden camera. Carter, Jake, and Dylan were beating a skinny boy in a school bathroom. The sound was on, and their laughter mixed with his desperate cries for help. "Where did you get this? Choke on it," Jake asked. "I have records of everything you have done for the past 2 years. Every bullying incident, every act of cruelty." Michael put his phone away. "Do you want to know how many children suffered because of you?" 23. 23 lives you ruined just for fun." Dylan raised his tear-streaked face. "We did not mean to." "Did not mean to?" Michael's voice grew icy. "You did not mean to when you forced Aaron Wells to eat from a trash bin? Did not mean to when you posted Sarah Mitchell's private photos? Did not mean to when you drove Timmy Johnson to attempt suicide?" Every word hit like a knife. "But do you know what is the worst part?" Michael continued. "Even now, you do not fully grasp the magnitude about what you have done. You only think about yourselves, your troubles, your pain." He scanned their faces. "None of you considered how your victims must feel." Carter clenched his fists. "Enough. I will not listen to this any longer." He lunged towards the door, but Michael was faster. His hand rested firmly on the teenager's shoulder, and Carter froze, sensing an unyielding grip. "Sit down," Michael said softly, his tone carrying something that made Carter comply without protest. "Now, listen to me carefully." Michael returned to the board and wrote a single word: cost. Every action carries a cost, and now it is time to face the consequences. "What do you mean by that?" Dylan stammered. Michael turned toward them, his eyes void of any mercy. "I mean, your story is far from over. What happened yesterday is just the beginning." He pulled a thick folder from his briefcase and placed it on the table. Michael laid out several sheets of paper. It was an agreement for voluntary community service, a rehabilitation program designed for troubled teens. "What kind of work?" Jake asked with suspicion. "You will assist at the local orphanage, every day after school for 3 hours, and every weekend for 6 hours, over the course of 4 months." "And if we refuse?" Dylan tried to bluff. Michael calmly took out his phone. "Then I will call the parents of every child you bullied and tell them everything." He revealed the details of what they had been doing with those children, explaining that the parents would be filing reports with the police. He showed them a list of contacts, saying, "I have the numbers of 32 families, 32 kids who have fallen victim to you over the past 2 years." The teenagers went pale. Charges included blackmailing minors, extortion, forced theft, and psychological abuse. All of these actions carry criminal liability, even for minors. Michael handed each of them a pen and said, "Choose 4 months of community service or years in a juvenile detention center." Then he displayed one of the photographs. Carter is handing a small bag of drugs to an elementary school student. Can you imagine the headlines? The son of a local tycoon dealing drugs at school. The judge's foster son. a sadist and animal killer, a congressman's daughter raising a blackmailer and extortionist. The teenagers turned even paler. Their parents would lose their jobs, their families would become outcasts, and they would spend years in a juvenile correctional facility. Carter grabbed the pen with a shaking hand. "Maybe you are right," Michael agreed, "but I am the one who protects the innocent from people like you." One by one, the teens signed the documents. "Excellent," Michael said as he collected the papers. "Tomorrow at 4 o'clock in the evening, you will report to Hope Shelter on Main Street. Mrs. Garcia, the director, will be waiting for you. She will explain your responsibilities." "And what exactly will we be doing there?" Jake asked gloomily. "You will learn what it feels like to be defenseless. You will understand what it means to depend on the kindness of others. Maybe, for the very first time in your life, you will truly understand what your victims feel." Michael headed toward the exit, but paused right at the door. "Remember, I will be watching your every move. The slightest mistake or even the smallest attempt to rebel will void the agreement," he warned. Once he left, the three teenagers sat in crushing silence. "What have we done?" Dylan finally whispered. No one replied. None of them really knew. The Hope Shelter was located in an old building on the edge of town. The paint was peeling, the windows were taped shut, and the roof had leaks. This place was meant for children whom no one wanted: orphans, abandoned kids, victims of domestic abuse. Carter, Jake, and Dylan stood in front of the entrance, hesitating to go inside. "Maybe we should run away," Jake suggested. "Go where?" Carter answered with a bitter smile. "He will find us wherever we go." The door opened, and an elderly Latin American woman in a simple dress stepped out. She was Mrs. Garcia, the director of the shelter. "Are you three from school?" she asked with a slight accent. The teenagers nodded. "Come in, we have a lot of work." Inside, the shelter looked even worse. Cracked walls, worn-out furniture, the smell of dampness mixed with something sour. Children of all ages were running through the hallways, from toddlers to teenagers. All of them appeared tired, sad, and lost. "There are 43 children living here," Mrs. Garcia explained. "Only 4 staff members are working here. We really need volunteers' help." She took them through the rooms. Each one contained 6 to 8 beds, placed almost side by side. Personal space was minimal. The children had almost no belongings, just the bare essentials. Maria, the director, introduced an 8-year-old girl with big, sad eyes. Her mother had passed away due to an overdose, and she did not know her father. The little girl clung fearfully to the wall as she stared at the strangers. Then there was James, a boy about 12 years old with a scar on his face. His stepfather was abusive and broke his arm in 3 places. Jake looked away. He could not bear to look at the scar. "Your task would be to help the children with their homework, feed them, play with them, and read bedtime stories. In short, you would be the older brothers they never had." Maria stopped in front of the room meant for teenagers. "But remember, these kids have witnessed things no child should ever see. They do not trust adults easily. It will be hard for them to accept anyone new." The door to the room was slightly open, and soft voices could be heard from inside. Carter peeked through and saw a group of teenagers sitting on the floor in a circle. They were whispering, occasionally casting wary glances toward the door. "What are they doing?" he asked. "Sharing their stories," Mrs. Garcia replied quietly. "This helps them deal with their traumas." One of the teenagers, a boy about 16 with a shaved head and tattoos on his arms, lifted his head and looked directly at Carter. "Hey, newcomers," he called out. "Come on in, don't be shy." Carter, Jake, and Dylan entered the room hesitantly. The other teenagers observed them with curiosity and suspicion. "My name is Marcus," the boy introduced himself. "Tattoos. And this is our lively group of misfits," he said, pointing to the others. A slender girl with short black hair, a frightened-looking boy of Asian descent, and a red-headed girl who appeared around 14 years old. "Tell me what brought you to our little paradise." Carter, Jake, and Dylan exchanged glances. How could they explain to these kids that they were here as a punishment? "We are volunteers," Carter finally said. Marcus frowned. "Volunteers, really? I thought you escaped from a juvenile detention center." "Why do you think that?" Jake asked, tensing up. Marcus smirked. "Because your faces scream, I have done bad things. Trust me, I know. Been there myself." He rolled up his sleeve to reveal scars on his forearm. "See? I used to cut myself when I was feeling terrible. And I felt terrible every day since my father started abusing me." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. "Now, it's your turn," Marcus continued. "What did you do wrong?" Carter felt his cheeks burn with shame. These kids who had endured real horrors looked at him expectantly, and he had to admit he had bullied children like them for fun. "We did bad things at school," he whispered. "What kind of things?" Marcus pressed on. Dylan could not hold back any longer. "We bullied weak kids, humiliated them, made them give us money." The mood in the room shifted instantly. The teenagers tensed, their faces growing cold. "So you are the real jerks," Marcus said slowly. "The reason why children end up here." "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "Do you see that girl?" Marcus pointed at the red-haired one. "Her name is Emily. She got sent here after a group of seniors at her former school pushed her to a complete breakdown. Just like you all." Emily shrunk back when she heard her name. "And Kevin," he indicated an Asian boy, "ran away from home after bullies at school shared a video online showing him being beaten. His parents blamed him instead of the attackers." Carter felt something inside him break apart. "We did not know," he began. "You did not know," Marcus exploded. "Or perhaps you didn't want to. You did not care what happens to your victims after you finish messing with them." He stood and stepped closer. "Do you know what is the worst thing for a child who is bullied? It is not the pain itself, but that they start believing they deserve it. That they truly are unworthy of respect and love." Marcus pointed to the scars on his arm. "This is what happens to kids you break. They start hurting themselves because they think they do not deserve anything better." Jake looked away, unable to hold his gaze on the marks. "And some," Marcus continued, "just end their own lives, like my brother." He took a photo from his pocket and showed it to them. It was a picture of a boy about 14 years old, with a kind smile. His name was Tommy. He hanged himself in his room after classmates recorded a video of them beating him in the bathroom and posted it online. Tears welled up in Dylan's eyes. He was only 14. Marcus's voice trembled as he spoke. He had dreamed of becoming a doctor to help people, yet now he believed the world would be better off without him. Marcus hid the photograph. "So do not tell me you were unaware. You just did not want to face the consequences." A heavy silence filled the room. Carter, Jake, and Dylan sat with their heads bowed, uncertain of what to say. Then Marcus suddenly said, "You have a chance to make things right." "How?" Carter asked hoarsely, as he was used to supporting kids like us, showing them that not all older boys were cruel. Marcus reached out his hand to Carter. "My name is Marcus. If you truly want to change, I am ready to help you." The first days in the shelter became a true nightmare for the three teenagers. The children distrusted them. The caretakers viewed them with suspicion, and the work turned out to be far tougher than any of them had anticipated. Carter assisted the little ones with homework, but they were constantly distracted, crying and demanding attention. He was accustomed to having his wishes followed without question, but here he had to practice patience, something he had never possessed before. Jake worked in the kitchen, washing dishes and helping prepare meals. The physical labor exhausted him. His hands were covered with scrapes from the cleaning agents, and his back ached from standing constantly by the sink. Dylan read bedtime stories to the children, but when he saw their frightened, suspicious eyes, his voice betrayed him with a trembling tone. These kids reminded him painfully of the victims he had once been himself. At the end of the first week, Mrs. Garcia called them into her office. "How are things going?" she asked. "It is hard," Carter Blake admitted honestly. "That is good. If it were easy, you would not learn anything." She pulled a desk folder from the drawer. "Would you like to see the files of the children you will be working with?" The teenagers exchanged glances and nodded. Mrs. Garcia opened the first file. Maria, 8 years old. Her mother died from a drug overdose when the girl was 5. She lived with her grandmother for 2 years until the grandmother was hospitalized with a stroke. The last year, Maria had been in 3 different foster families. Each time she was sent back. "Why?" Dylan Cooper asked. "Nightmares, bedwetting, panic attacks, typical symptoms of post-traumatic stress in children." She turned the page. James, 12 years old. His stepfather regularly abused him for 4 years. The mother was aware, but took no action. The boy ended up in the hospital with a broken arm and internal injuries. Only then did social services get involved. Carter felt a lump rise in his throat. Kevin, 15 years old, came from South Korea with his parents 2 years ago. At school, he faced constant bullying because of his accent and appearance. Classmates filmed videos of him being beaten and posted them on social media. His parents accused him of bringing shame on the family. Jake clenched his fists. He recognized his own behaviors in that story. Emily, 14 years old. A group of older girls at her school had created a fake social media page where they posted insulting remarks about her. Her name was known by no one. The girl became an outcast, losing all her friends, and even attempted to end her own life. Taking her mother's pills, Dylan covered his face with his hands. "Do you want to know what all these children have in common?" Mrs. Garcia asked. The teenagers remained silent. All of them believe they deserve mistreatment and feel unworthy of love and respect. This is what bullying does to kids. She closed the folder. Each of these children could have become a doctor, teacher, or artist, but instead, they are struggling just to survive. Carter lifted his head and asked how they could help them. Showing them they deserve love, letting them know someone cares, and that they are not alone is key. Mrs. Garcia stood up and said, "Now go to work. Remember, every word you say and every gesture you make could be a beam of hope for these children or another wound." 3 weeks passed. Carter, Jake, and Dylan slowly became accustomed to working at the shelter. The children started to trust them, although some still remained cautious. That evening, Carter was helping 7-year-old Michael with drawing. The boy was very quiet and rarely spoke, always keeping to himself away from the other kids. "What are you drawing?" Carter asked. Michael showed his drawing. It depicted a family: Mom, Dad, and a little boy. All of them were smiling. "Is this your family?" The boy nodded. "Where are they now?" "Mom is in the sky," Michael said softly. "And your dad?" Carter asked. "He didn't want me," Michael answered. Carter felt his heart tighten with pain. He remembered how cruelly he had bullied similarly defenseless children, and it struck him deeply. The shame felt unbearable. "Michael," he said gently, "do you know that you are such a good boy?" The child looked at him with surprise. "Really? Really? And what happened to your parents was not your fault?" Michael thought for a moment and then asked, "Then why did Dad say that I am bad? That Mom died because of me?" Carter felt something twist deep inside him. This little boy blamed himself for his mother's death just because someone told him so. "Listen carefully." Carter crouched down to be eye level with the boy. "Your dad said something foolish. Adults sometimes say foolish things when they are hurting. You are not responsible for what happened to your mom." "How do you know?" Michael asked skeptically. "Because I was once very bad myself, really bad, and I know what bad people look like, but you are not one of them." The boy studied Carter's face closely. "And now you are good." "I am learning to be good," Carter admitted honestly. "Every day, I try." Michael smiled for the first time since Carter had known him. "Can you teach me how to be good?" Carter felt tears welling up in his eyes. "You already are good, Michael. You just needed someone to tell you that." Meanwhile, in the next room, Jake was playing a board game with a group of children. One of the boys, 10-year-old David, was cheating constantly, trying to win at any cost. Before, Jake would have exploded, yelling at the boy. But now he understood what lay beneath this behavior. Behind this behavior lies a desperate wish to be superior in some way. "David," he said softly, "how about we try playing fair?" "Why?" snapped the boy. "I will lose anyway." "Who said losing is bad? My father believed that losers deserved only scorn." Jake froze. Those words were nearly identical to what he himself had said to his victims at school. "Your father was wrong," he said. "Losing is okay. The important thing is to keep trying. You are only saying that so I do not feel upset." "No," Jake looked the boy straight in the eyes. "I say this because I used to think differently, and it made me a bad person." David blinked in surprise. "You were bad? Really bad? Hurting kids who were weaker than me?" "Why? Because I thought it made me strong, but in truth, it made me pathetic." Jake leaned back in his chair. "You know what I realized? True strength means protecting the vulnerable, not hurting them." David nodded thoughtfully and removed extra chips he had quietly added to his game board. Meanwhile, in a child's bedroom, Dylan was reading a story to a group of little ones. Among them was Emily, the red-haired girl who ended up in a shelter after being bullied at school. When Dylan finished reading, Emily came up to him. "Can you read another one?" "Of course, which one do you want?" "Cinderella." Dylan opened the book and began recounting the tale of a girl mistreated by her stepsisters, but who eventually found happiness. "Why did the stepsisters... Were they mean?" Emily asked. "Probably because they were hurting themselves," Dylan replied. "Sometimes people do terrible things, not because they are bad inside, but because they do not know how to be kind. The girls at my school also did hurtful things because they were in pain." Dylan felt a pang of guilt. He imagined this little girl defending her tormentors, trying to find reasons for their cruelty. "Emily," he said softly, "it does not matter whether they are hurting or not. No one has the right to hurt you. But they said it was my fault. They lied." Dylan crouched beside the girl's bed. "You are not at fault. Never at fault, do you understand?" Emily nodded, but her eyes still held doubt. "How do you know?" she asked. Dylan paused. He could have lied or said something comforting, but this child deserved the truth. "Because I once hurt children like you," he confessed quietly, "and I know that we always tried to justify what we did. We said the victims were to blame, but that was a lie." Emily looked at him carefully. "Why did you do it?" "Because I thought it would make me important and strong." "Did it?" Dylan shook his head. "No, it made me a pathetic coward who could only feel big by putting others down." The girl thought for a moment. "Are you like that now?" "I am learning every day not to be." Emily reached out and gently brushed his cheek. "I think you are a good person, Dylan." He felt tears streaming down his cheeks. Forgiveness from this child meant more to him than anything else in his entire life. A month spent working at the shelter transformed all three teenagers. They learned to recognize pain in children's eyes, to sense their fears, to comprehend their needs. Yet most importantly, they grasped the true meaning of being responsible for lives other than their own. Carter especially grew close to 7-year-old Michael Harrison, a boy who barely spoke and kept drawing the same picture repeatedly. A house, a mother, and himself. Every day, Carter spent several hours patiently earning his trust. "Michael," he said quietly one evening, "tell me about your mom." The boy lifted his gaze from the drawing. "She was kind. She used to read me stories." Carter asked what had happened. Michael answered, "She got sick, very sick, then went to the hospital and never came back." Carter felt his heart tighten. This child lost his mother, not because of anyone's cruelty or malice, but simply due to illness, yet he still suffered deeply. "What about your father?" Carter inquired. Michael frowned. "Dad said I remind him of Mom. It hurts him to look at me, so he left me here." "That is unfair," Carter said sincerely. "What does fair mean?" the boy asked with innocent curiosity. Carter thought for a moment. He used to believe fairness meant the strong ruling over the weak, that he had the right to do whatever he wanted because he was more popular, wealthier, more powerful. "Fairness means no one hurts those who cannot defend themselves. Protect yourself," he said slowly. "And you? Have you ever been mean?" Carter froze. "How do you explain the extent of your cruelty to a 7-year-old? "Yes, Michael, I did hurt other children." "Why?" "Because I believed it would make me important." The boy paused in thought. "Did it?" "No, it made me a bad person." Michael handed him his drawing. "Want me to draw you as a good person?" Carter felt tears welling up. This little soul, who had endured so much pain, was willing to see the good in him. "Michael, do you know you are the kindest boy I have ever met?" "Really?" "It's true. And anyone who doesn't appreciate you is simply foolish." In the next room, Jake worked with a group of teenagers. Among them was 15-year-old Kevin, the Korean boy Mrs. Garcia had mentioned. Kevin barely spoke English and kept to himself. Other kids in the shelter avoided him not out of malice, but because they didn't know how to connect with him. Jake remembered how he used to bully outsiders like Kevin, children who were different from most. Now, seeing Kevin, he recognized all those he had once harmed. Carefully, Jake approached the boy. "How are you?" The teenager looked up, frightened. "I don't understand well. That's okay. I will help." Jake sat beside him, taking out a school English book. "Let's study together." Kevin glanced at him warily. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I used to be like you." He had treated children like you badly before, and now wants to make amends. Carter Blake studied his face carefully. "Were you bad?" he asked. "Very bad," came the reply. "But now I'm learning to be good." The boy nodded thoughtfully. "All right. I will learn too." For the next 2 weeks, they spent every evening together. Jake Martinez helped Carter with English, and Carter shared stories about Korea, his family, and the fear of finding himself in a strange country. "At school, kids would hit me," Carter once confessed. "They said I should not be here." Jake clenched his fists. He recognized his own past mistakes in this tale. "Carter, that is not true. You have every right to be here. This is your home now. But I am different, and that is okay. The world would be dull if everyone were the same." Carter smiled for the first time since they met. "You could be my older brother," he said. Inside, Jake felt a rush of emotion. This boy, despite all the suffering, was ready to trust him. "Of course, Carter. I will be your older brother." Meanwhile, Dylan Cooper met 14-year-old Emily, a girl who had been placed in a shelter after being bullied at school. She rarely left her room, spending all her time reading and avoiding contact with others. "Emily," he called softly, peeking inside. "May I come in?" The girl nodded without breaking her gaze from the book. "What are you reading?" he asked. "Jane Eyre," she replied. "A sad book." I like sad books, Emily whispered. The characters do not suffer for nothing. They find happiness in the end. Dylan sat on the edge of her bed. Do you believe that such things can happen in real life as well? The girl shrugged her shoulders. I don't know. So far, all I have seen is suffering. Tell me what happened at your school. Emily closed the book and remained silent for a long time. Then she began speaking in a soft, monotonous voice. They called me ugly. Every day, during every break, they had created a group on social media called Emily Monster. They posted my pictures there with captions. Dylan listened, feeling nausea growing inside him. They secretly photographed me when I was eating, changing for gym, crying in the restroom, and posted the pictures with comments like, "Look at this fat pig," or "Someone should tell her the truth about her appearance." My God. But the worst part was that even those I called friends joined in. They were afraid that if they stood up for me, they would become outcasts too. Emily opened the book again but did not read. She just stared at the page. Do you know what is the most terrifying thing about bullying? She asked. It is not the bullying itself, but that you start to believe what they say about you. That you are truly ugly and deserve bad treatment. Dylan felt something inside him break. He thought about all the kids he had bullied together with Carter and Jake. Could it be that they all felt the same way? Emily, he said quietly, I have also taken part in bullying, at another school, to other children. But I was doing the same thing. The girl lifted her eyes. Why? Because he believed that making others feel small somehow elevated his own importance. Did it, though? Dylan shook his head. No, it only made him a pitiful coward who could feel powerful only by putting down those weaker than himself. Emily studied his face carefully. Now you regret every second, she said. Then you're not the same person you used to be. How do you know? Because evil people never feel regret. They always find excuses. After 6 weeks of working at the shelter, something happened that changed everything forever. A new boy was brought in, a 13-year-old named Lucas. When Carter saw him, he nearly stumbled in shock. Lucas looked almost exactly like Aaron Wells, the very boy they had bullied at school. The same skinny frame, the same frightened eyes behind glasses, the same habit of keeping to himself. What happened to him? Carter asked Mrs. Garcia. The usual story. A pack of older students chose him as a target. They recorded videos of beating him and posted them online. His parents thought it was easier to send him to the shelter than to fight the system. Carter felt panic rising inside. This boy was a living reminder of his misdeeds. Lucas sat in the corner of the dining hall, poking at his food with a fork, but not eating. He was surrounded by an aura of utter hopelessness. Hi, Carter approached carefully. My name is Carter. The boy looked up. His eyes were full of so much pain that Carter almost looked away. I know who you are, he whispered. Lucas said. What did Mrs. Garcia tell you? That the three of you used to be troublemakers, and now you work here as a form of punishment? Carter sank down onto the chair opposite him. Is it true? So you are just like them, the ones who bullied me. I used to be like that too, but I do not want to be anymore. Lucas gave a bitter smile. That is what everyone says. But then it starts all over again. Lucas, do not pretend you care. People like you could not care less about people like me. We are just entertainment for you. The boy got up and ran out of the cafeteria. Carter sat motionless, shaken by his words. There was so much hatred and despair in Lucas's voice that it was frightening. He also realized this must be how Aaron felt. These were the very words he wanted to say to him, but never dared to. That night, Carter could not fall asleep. He kept thinking about Lucas, about Aaron, about all the kids they had hurt. The next morning, he found Lucas in the shelter's library. The boy was sitting with a book, but not reading, just staring out the window. Lucas, I need to tell you something. I do not want to listen. Please. It is important." Lucas reluctantly turned to him. "At my school, there was a boy named Aaron Wells. He was very much like you. Quiet, smart, kind." Carter paused. "My friends and I made his life a nightmare. We forced him to do our homework, stole money from his parents, made him endure humiliation. We blackmailed him with compromising photos." Lucas listened without looking away. Aaron tried several times to ask for help, but we convinced him that no one would believe that the system is actually on our side, that resisting would only make things worse. "So what happened?" Carter swallowed hard. He tried to end it all, took a large amount of sleeping pills. Lucas turned pale. They saved him, revived him in the hospital. But when he woke up, the first thing he said was, "I just wanted the pain to stop." Tears streamed down Carter's cheeks. "You know what? I realized that we were not merely tormenting him, we were slowly destroying his spirit. Day after day, word after word, humiliation after humiliation." Lucas remained silent. "Now, when I look at you, I see him. I see the same boy driven to despair, and I understand that there are millions like you and him." Carter stood up. "Lucas, I am not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I want you to know that you are not alone, and what was done to you is not your fault." He started to head toward the exit, but Lucas called out to him. "Carter, yes? What about Aaron now? He went to medical school, aiming to become a psychiatrist to help kids who have gone through what he did." Lucas thought for a moment. "Did he forgive you?" "Yes, I don't know why, but he forgave. Maybe because he understood that hatred destroys the one who hates, not the one who is hated." Carter looked at the boy in surprise. "How do you know that?" "I read it in a psychology book. There's a large library here." That same day, the parents of all 3 teens unexpectedly arrived at the shelter. Richard Blake, Judge Martinez with his wife, and Congresswoman Elizabeth Cooper with her husband. Mrs. Garcia greeted them in her office. "We want to take our children," declared Richard Blake. "This community service idea has gone too far." "Why do you believe that?" the principal asked calmly. "Because they are changing," Elizabeth Cooper burst out. "Dylan calls every day and talks about some orphaned kids. He cries on the phone. Before, he never cried at all. And Jake has become so soft," added Mrs. Martinez. "Yesterday, he saw a story about homeless animals on TV and started to cry. That is not normal for a boy. Carter wants to enroll in a social college," Richard complained. "He abandoned all plans to run my business." Mrs. Garcia listened carefully to everyone. "Sorry, but I don't understand the problem. Your children are learning compassion." "Compassion is weakness," snapped Richard. "In business, you need to be tough. And in court, fair, but not sentimental," supported Judge Martinez. "In politics, rational, not emotional," agreed Congressman Cooper. Mrs. Garcia stood up. "You want to know what I think? Your upbringing turned your children into troublemakers." A tense silence fell. "You taught them that power is more important than kindness, success more important than honesty, money more important than humanity." She walked to the window and continued. "As a result, they almost drove a child to suicide." "That is not our fault," shouted Richard. "No," she answered. "Who taught Carter that wealth gives the right to humiliate the poor? Who showed Jake that violence solves problems? Who explained all this? Dylan, is a lie better than the truth?" The parents remained silent. Their children were in this place for the first time ever, learning what it means to be human, and now they wanted to take them away. At that moment, the door opened, and Carter, Jake, and Dylan entered the room. They had heard the voices and came to see what was going on. "Dad," Carter exclaimed, "what are you doing here?" "We are taking you home," Richard replied sharply. "Stop pretending to play charity, but I don't want to leave." "What?" Carter looked at his father with new determination in his eyes. "I said I do not want to leave here. I need this place. You need to finish school and prepare for business college. I want to go to social college." Richard flushed with anger. "You will not work with these failures. You are the heir to the empire." "What empire?" Carter asked quietly. "One built on others' suffering." "Are you speaking nonsense?" "No, Dad. It is nonsense I talked about before when I repeated your words that the weak are made to be ruled by the strong." Carter stepped forward. "Do you know what I realized these weeks? True strength is in protecting the weak, not in humiliating them." Richard raised his hand as if to strike his son, but Carter did not flinch. "Hit me," he calmly said. "Show everyone how strong you are." His father's hand froze midair. Meanwhile, Judge Martinez was trying to take Jake away. "Come on, son. At home, a psychiatrist awaits you." "I no longer need a psychiatrist," Jake answered. "I understand where my anger came from." "From where?" "From you, from your example. You always decided." He used force, shouted at Mom, hit me. It was his way of teaching that the weak should be despised. The judge stepped back. "I taught you to be a man." "No, you taught me to be an animal." Meanwhile, Congressman Cooper pulled Dina toward the exit. "Enough of this charade. We are going home." "Mom, please stop," I pleaded. Dylan escaped her grip. "This is the first time ever I am doing something meaningful. I am helping children who have endured the same as our victims." "What victims?" "These are just school pranks." "Mom, one boy nearly took his own life because of those pranks." Elizabeth Cooper turned pale. "That is not true." "It is true. And do you know the worst part? He forgave us, but we do not deserve that." Dylan looked his mother in the eyes. "You spent your life fighting for justice in politics, but at home, you taught me that lying is acceptable if it helps to achieve a goal." "I never taught that, Mom. When I said, 'Tell them I am not home,' when I asked you to lie about where you were, or explained that promises to voters are just words." Congressman Cooper sank down in the chair. "Mom, I do not want to be like before. I do not want to be a copy of Dad lying in court, or you lying to voters." Mrs. Garcia watched the scene with a sad satisfaction. "Do you see?" she quietly told the parents. "Your children have become better, and you want to take them back to their old lives?" On the final day of their community service, Mrs. Garcia gathered all three of them in her office. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Different," Carter answered honestly. "See the world as it truly is." "What do you see?" "Pain. So much pain we have caused without even realizing it." Mrs. Garcia nodded. "What do you intend to do with this knowledge?" Before anyone could respond, the door swung open. Michael Harrison entered the room. "Mr. Harrison," Jake exclaimed, "what are you doing here?" "I came to check on your progress," Michael replied calmly, "and to speak with you one last time." He took a seat opposite them. "You want to know why I am really here?" The teenagers remained silent. "Because an hour ago I received a call from the hospital. Aaron Wells is in intensive care. Blood ran cold." "What happened?" Dylan whispered. "An overdose of sleeping pills. A suicide attempt." Carter felt the world shatter around him. "He left a note," Michael continued. "Do you want to know what it said?" No one answered. "I cannot go on anymore. Every day is torture. Carter Blake and his friends broke me. But even now, when they supposedly have changed, I cannot forget. The scars on my soul do not heal as quickly as others would hope." Jake covered his face with his hands. "Everyone says you must forgive and forget. But how do you forgive those who turned your life into hell? How do you forget the humiliation, the fear, the sleepless nights? Michael paused to let the words sink in. Maybe they really have changed. Maybe they are helping other children now. But that doesn't bring back my lost years, erase the memories, or heal the soul, Dylan cried softly. I am tired of fighting the pain, tired of waking up every morning haunted by what was done to me, exhausted from pretending everything is fine. Michael reached for his phone. If you are reading this, it means I have made a decision. Do not blame yourself. Just remember, words carry power, and some wounds never truly heal. An oppressive silence settled. But do you know what is most surprising? Michael leaned forward. Aaron survived. The doctors revived him just in time. All three raised their heads. And when he regained consciousness, the first thing he said was, I do not want them to blame themselves. I only wanted the pain to stop. Carter lifted his head. Is he alive? Yes, he is. And you want to know something else? He asked. To tell you that he forgives you. Tears still streamed down the faces of all three teenagers. But Aaron's forgiveness does not mean your actions were without consequences, Michael continued. He will need extensive treatment psychologically, emotionally, perhaps for his entire life. Michael stood up. The doctor said he requires support. People who understand his pain. People who know what repentance means. What do you suggest? Carter asked hoarsely. Go to him, talk. Not to seek forgiveness you have already received, but to show he is not alone. Michael headed for the exit. The choice is yours. But remember, second chances are not given to everyone or always. The hospital room was filled with flowers and cards, and Aaron Wells lay in bed connected to an IV. He looked far older than his 17 years. When Carter, Jake, and Dylan entered, he slowly turned toward them. He lowered his head. Hello, he whispered softly. Hello, Aaron. An awkward silence lingered. How are you feeling? Dylan asked. Alive, Aaron replied with a sad smile. That was something at least. Carter stepped closer. Aaron, I don't need to repeat this. We have already discussed it. But I feel I must say it every time we meet. Aaron sighed deeply. Go ahead, he said. I'm sorry. Truly sorry for everything we did to you. For every day you dreaded going to school. For every sleepless night. For every tear you shed because of us. Carter, let me finish, Aaron interrupted gently. I understand that words cannot undo the past, cannot restore the lost years, or erase painful memories. But I want you to know that we have changed. Aaron nodded weakly. I know. I heard about your work at the shelter. Jake came over to the window. Aaron, why did you forgive us after everything we put you through? Aaron thought for a moment before responding. Hatred was killing me from the inside. Every day, every minute, I was consumed by how much I despised you, and I realized I was still letting you destroy my life. He sat down on the bed, Forgiveness is not a gift for you. It is a gift for myself. It is a way to release the pain. But you still tried, Dylan began. Yes, because forgiveness is a journey, not a sudden decision. Sometimes the pain feels heavier than the desire to live. Aaron looked at them. Do you know what stopped me at the last moment? The thought that my death would change nothing, that new victims would appear, new bullies, new tragedies. And what did you decide? What if I want to change the world? Then I must remain in it. Aaron reached out and took a brochure from the nightstand. I applied to medical school. I want to become a child psychiatrist to help kids like you, Carter said. To assist all children, both victims and bullies, because both need support. He looked at them with seriousness. And what are your plans moving forward? Carter, Jake, and Dylan exchanged glances. We want to establish a foundation, Carter explained. A school violence victim assistance fund. What will it be called? The Aaron Wells Foundation. Aaron raised his eyebrows in surprise. My name. If you don't mind, you have become a symbol that bullying can be survived, and one can stay human. Aaron was silent for a long moment, and then nodded. All right, but on one condition. What condition? The foundation will support not only victims, but bullies as well. Rehabilitation programs, psychological help, family work. Jake was surprised. Why? Because most bullies were once victims themselves. The cycle of violence must be broken, not just punish those involved. The auditorium of Springfield Central School was completely full. On stage stood 4 young people who seemed older than their years. My name is Aaron Wells, began the first one. 3 years ago, I ended up in the hospital after a suicide attempt due to school bullying. A profound silence fell over the crowd. I was humiliated, blackmailed. My life turned into a nightmare by 3 classmates. Here they stand beside me. Aaron pointed toward Carter Blake, Jake Martinez, and Dylan Cooper. Carter Blake, Jake Martinez, and Dylan Cooper were once my tormentors, yet now they stand as allies in the fight against bullying. A murmur of surprise swept through the room. You might wonder how this is possible. How can a victim work alongside those who once made their life miserable? Aaron paused, and I will answer because revenge does not heal wounds. Only understanding, forgiveness, and cooperation can transform the world. Carter stepped forward to the microphone. 3 years ago, I was a cruel, selfish person who took pleasure in others' pain. I believed strength meant having people fear you. He looked around the room. However, true strength lies in admitting your mistakes and changing your life for the better. Jake then grabbed the microphone. I used to be an aggressive teenager who solved every problem with fists. I thought violence was the norm. He shook his head. It took a year working with orphans to realize that violence only breeds more violence, while love creates love. Dylan was the last to approach the microphone. I was a weak-willed person who joined in cruelty because I was scared to be alone. His voice trembled. But loneliness is better than being complicit in someone else's suffering. Aaron took the microphone again. Over 3 years, our foundation has helped more than 1,000 children, both victims of bullying and bullies alike. We understood the key point. Evil can only be overcome with kindness. His gaze swept over the crowd. Any one of you can become a bully. Anyone can cause pain to someone weaker, but every person also has the power to choose differently. Someone can choose a different path. Carter added, choosing to protect instead of attacking, choosing to support instead of humiliating. Jake continued, choosing to be human rather than a beast. Dylan concluded, choosing love over hatred. Aaron stepped forward and said, remember, your words carry power. Your actions have consequences, and each of you can change someone's life for better or worse. The room erupted in long applause. After the speech, a group of teenagers approached them with questions, thanks, and requests for help. A girl around 14 quietly told Aaron, thank you. I thought no one cared, that I was alone. He gently replied, you are not alone, and you never will be while we are alive. When the hall emptied, the 4 friends stood on the stage holding each other. Do you think we made a difference? Carter asked. We tried, Aaron responded, and we will keep trying. Jake nodded. Some mistakes cannot be undone, but they can become lessons for others. Dylan added, and some wounds become a source of strength. Aaron smiled and said, you know what's amazing? 3 years ago I wanted to die because of you, and now I cannot imagine life without you. Why? Carter asked. because you remind me every day that people can change, that evil is not eternal, that there is always hope. They left the school together, heading toward the bus that would take them to the next town, to the next children who needed them. They need their support, moving on to the next opportunity to show the world that forgiveness is more powerful than revenge, and love surpasses hatred, proving that every person deserves a second chance. The story has come to an end, but its effects continue to live in every child who decided not to hurt a classmate anymore, in every adult who stepped in upon witnessing unfairness, in every individual who grasped the simple truth that our actions carry weight, our words hold power, and each one of us has the ability to change the world for better or worse. The choice is always ours. In Boston, in a small apartment above a bookstore, Michael Harrison was reading a report from Cheshire about the work of the Aaron Wells Foundation. Over 3 years, they managed to prevent countless incidents of teenage bullying, rehabilitated more than 300 aggressive adolescents, and supported thousands of victims of harassment. On the wall hung a photo of his daughter Emily. The very same one he once made faced the wall in a school office. Now he could look at her without pain, remembering not only the tragedy, but also the good that grew from that suffering. His phone rang. "Michael, this is Aaron. Hello, son. How are you?" Over the years, a nearly fatherly bond had formed between them. Michael had become the mentor Aaron lacked during his most difficult times. "Great. We just finished a presentation in Chicago. I think we reached many children." "I'm proud of you, proud of all of you," Aaron said. "Michael, I wanted to thank you for everything." "For what?" "For not letting all of us give up, for showing that it is possible to find meaning in any form of pain." Michael smiled warmly. "You understood it yourselves, guys. I only guided you." Then he asked, "Where will you go next?" Michael glanced at the letter resting on the table. The principal of a school in Texas had reached out for help. They faced similar issues with teenage aggression there. In Dallas, children also needed support. "We will definitely meet again. Keep saving the world, kids." After that talk, Michael packed his suitcase. Inside lay a worn photograph of himself with his wife and little Emily at a family picnic. The picture was taken just 1 month before the tragedy that forever altered his life. Back then, he believed his calling was simply to teach children literature. Now he realized his mission was much deeper, to help kids understand that their words and deeds carry consequences, that anyone can choose to hurt or to heal. As long as there are people like Aaron Wells, Carter Blake, Jake Martinez, and Dylan Cooper, individuals who transformed their pain into strength and their mistakes into wisdom, humanity still has hope. Because every one of us can change, every person is capable of becoming better, and everyone deserves a second chance.